In this video, I'm going to be exploring the ideas of the anarchist thinker and revolutionary Mikhail Bakunin concerning anarchy. Throughout Bakunin's criticisms of capitalism and state socialism, he constantly argues for freedom. It's not surprising, then, to find that in his sketches of future anarchist society, the principle of freedom takes precedence. He outlined a number of revolutionary structures as essential to promote the maximum possible individual and collective freedom. The societies envisioned in Bakunin's programs are not utopian in the sense of being detailed fictional communities that are free of troubles, but rather suggest the basic minimum skeletal structures which would guarantee freedom. The character of future anarchist societies will vary, said Bakunin, depending on a whole range of historical, cultural, economic and geographical factors. The basic problem was to lay down the minimum necessary conditions which would bring about a society based upon justice and social welfare for all, and would also generate freedom. The negative destructive features of the programme are all concerned with the abolition of those institutions which lead to domination and exploitation. The state, including the established church, the judiciary, state banks and bureaucracy, the armed forces and the police are all to be swept away. Also, all ranks, privileges, classes and the monarchy are to be abolished. The positive, constructive features of the new society all interlink to promote freedom and justice. For a society to be free, Bakunin argued, it is not sufficient to simply impose equality. Freedom can only be achieved and maintained through the full participation in society of a highly educated and healthy population, free from social and economic worries. Such an enlightened population can then be truly free and able to act rationally on the basis of a popularly controlled science and a thorough knowledge of the issues involved. Bakunin advocated complete freedom of movement, opinion and morality, where people would not be accountable to anyone for their beliefs and acts, in so much as they did not inhibit those same freedoms in another. Freedom, he believed, must be defended by freedom. Quote, "For to advocate the restriction of freedom on the pretext that it is being defended is a dangerous delusion." End quote. A truly free and enlightened society, Bakunin said, would adequately preserve liberty not through bureaucratic laws created and upheld by a minority, but would uphold the libertarian ideal through the collective consensus of each community, while still respecting the contrary opinions that exist within these communities. This is not to say that Bakunin did not think that a society has the right to protect itself. He firmly believed that freedom was to be found within society, not through its destruction. Those people who acted in ways that lessen freedom for others have no place. These include people that live off the labour of others. Work, the contribution of one's labour for the creation of wealth, forms the basis of political freedoms in the proposed anarchist society. But the sick, elderly and infirm are exempt from labour and are to be cared for and provided for by the community. Those who live by exploiting others do not deserve political freedoms. Others who still violate voluntary agreements within and by society, inflict bodily harm and such like, can expect to be punished by the laws or customs which have been created by that society. The condemned criminal, on the other hand, can escape punishment by society by removing him or herself from society and the benefits it confers. Society can also expel the criminal if it so wishes. Basically, Bakunin set great store on the power of enlightened public opinion to minimise antisocial activity. Bakunin proposed the equalisation of wealth, though natural inequalities which are reflected in different levels of skill, energy and thrift should, he argued, be tolerated. The purpose of equality is to allow individuals to find full expression of their humanity within society. Bakunin was strongly opposed to the idea of hired labour, which, if introduced into an anarchist society, would lead to the reintroduction of inequality and wage slavery. He proposed instead collective effort because it would, he thought, tend to be more efficient. However, so long as individuals did not employ others, he had no objection to them working alone. Through the creation of associations of labour which could coordinate workers' activities, Bakunin proposed the setting up of an industrial assembly in order to harmonise production with the demand for products. Such an assembly would be necessary in the absence of the market. Supplied with statistical information from the various voluntary organisations which would be federated, production could be specialised on an international basis so that those countries with inbuilt economic advantages would produce most efficiently for the general good. Then, according to Bakunin, waste, economic crisis and stagnation, quote, will no longer plague mankind, the emancipation of human labour will regenerate the world, end quote. Turning to the question of the political organisation of society, Bakunin stressed that society should be built in such a way as to achieve order through the realisation of freedom on the basis of the federation of voluntary organisations. In all such political bodies, power is to flow, quote, from the base to the summit, from the circumference to the centre, end quote. In other words, such organisations should be the expressions of individual and group opinions, not directing centres which control people. On the basis of federalism, Bakunin proposed a multi-tier system of responsibility for decision-making which would be binding on all participants, so long as they supported the system. Those individuals, groups, or political institutions which made up the total structure would have the freedom to secede. Each participating unit would have an absolute freedom to self-determination, to associate with the larger bodies or not. Starting at the local level, Bakunin suggested as the basic political unit the completely autonomous commune. The commune would elect all of its own delegates. The commune would decide its own affairs, but if voluntarily federated to the next tier of administration, the provincial assembly, its constitution must conform to the provincial assembly. Similarly, the constitution of the province must be accepted by the participating communes. The provincial assembly would define the freedoms and obligations existing between communes and pass laws affecting the province as a whole. Further levels of political organisation would be the national body and ultimately the international assembly. As regards international organisation, Bakunin proposed that there should be no permanent armed forces, preferring instead the creation of local citizens' defence militias. Thus, from root to branch, Bakunin's outline for anarchy is based upon the free federation of participants in order to maximise individual and collective well-being. Bakunin's conception of individual freedom was deeply socially embedded, and he acknowledged that we are social beings whose individual liberty is bound up with collective liberty. However, he did also believe that the freedom and autonomy of the individual should be as absolute and unlimited as possible, and that a genuinely free society is one where truly free and autonomous individuals flourish. And Bakunin also thought that individuals should not do the right thing due to being forced to do so, but because they genuinely desired to do the right thing. He believed that individuals should have the freedom and courage to be openly true to themselves and their convictions. Bakunin also argued that individuals could not be free living in any kind of society ruled over by any kind of state. For Bakunin, the state is the enemy of the individual and always subjugates the individual. Quote, "Where the state begins, individual liberty ceases, and vice versa." End quote.